And welcome back to Subculture on centralcoastradio.com. Well, it's early Sunday morning, but we've been joined by a very, very special guest at the moment. Nick Barker has got a brand new album out called Exoskeleton, and we thought we would actually get Nick on the phone this morning to chat a little bit about this amazing album because it marks so many milestones for him as well. So welcome to the program, Nick.
Hey, Dave.
Nick, this album is just absolutely amazing. It is such a personal album. I've been listening to it over and over and over. Congratulations, mate.
Thank you. That's unreal. Thanks a lot.
So, mate, tell us a little bit about this album and the journey that it's taken to get there, because it has been a little while since a solo album for you. So why did now feel like the perfect time to start working on a solo album, and what did you have any goals with this album?
It's just, I try and make a record every couple of years. It's more about the songwriting process with me. I sort of, sometimes, like, I'm always writing songs. Sometimes I write more, sometimes I write less. But previously, in the time since my last solo album and this one, I sort of started a band. So everything went into that. I made 2 albums with that, and I was sort of consumed with that, this idea of having this band. So once that sort of collapsed, which bands inevitably do, I just had more songs, and I thought, well, I've got to, my process is I have to kind of record them, otherwise they clutter up my head. And the only way I can sort of move forward is to make records, So it's kind of a weird creative process, but it sort of works for me.
Definitely.
And as far as the songs, it was just, they were the songs that I'd collected in that time period, Like I've always got 30 or 40 ideas, but it just depends which ones. Like, I always sort of record ideas and then I just leave them, and then I sort of listen to them after a time period, and gives you a better idea of which ones kind of stand out, if you know what I mean, because you kind of stepped away from them. So that's pretty much what I did with this record. And then as we started recording, all the lockdown stuff hit, so it just kind of dragged it all out time-wise, which is probably why it's kind of a little eclectic in its. It sort of jumps from style to style, the record. That's because of the time.
Yep.
It getting paused all the time and me changing my mind about things, So.
Yeah. Did you find those lockdown times were a good time to write music? Because I found with musicians, it was either a time where they wrote a lot or they wrote very, very little. What was that period like for you?
It didn't make a lot of difference to me. The way I kind of write is sort of unique to me, It just, it was a strange time, but it didn't, creatively, the only thing it did was, I suppose I wrote more because I wasn't playing, so I wasn't, if you're doing lots of gigs, you can get burnt out a little bit, just as far as, you just sort of like, I just can't be bothered picking up my guitar. I've been doing gigs this weekend, so there wasn't that.
Yep.
And I wasn't sort of, so I guess in a way it was kind of had a positive response to me, because I just played and played and played and played ever since, gee whiz, like since Reptiles. I've just played all the time, and it was kind of, in a way, it was good to stop and reset. But as far as writing and that and recording, it didn't make a lot of difference. It just meant that the record was stretched out, as I said, the writing process, just because of, what was going on in Melbourne. People couldn't move around. We couldn't do this. We couldn't do that. So all it meant was I was stewing on things a bit more.
Yeah.
Whereas I probably, it just meant that the record didn't get made as quickly. So, as I said, stylistically it changed because, I kind of flip and flop a little bit. And if I've got too much time, it just, I'll go, I might do this. It's not good for me.
Yeah.
I'm not someone who I'm a bit of a procrastinator in recording studios. So,
Yeah.
but look, for me, making records these days it's just about, I know that I've got a fan base. It's not huge, but the ones that are there are very loyal, and as long as I'm true to myself, I know that they kind of get what I do, and it's proven. Like I've had really good positive feedback for Exoskeleton so far, and that's all you can kind of do as a songwriter, really. You can't. When you're in your 20s, you think, right, I'm gonna. You've got the record coming in your ear saying, oh, we need a single, we need this, we need. You've got to get. It's world domination, But as you get older, you just realise that you're kind of a singer-songwriter, and you just. As long as you're being creative, you've just got to move forward, and you've got to bring those people that really have supported you and really get what you do along with you. So you can't, you can't alienate them, but it also doesn't mean you can't move within that creative sphere. That's the way I look at it, and it's kind of comforting.
Definitely.
I'm not. You get to a point in your life where you sort of just. I don't know if you're ever comfortable with what you're doing and who you are, but you trust yourself more. And, I always look at it like, I've got there's a certain bunch of actors that I really like, for instance, and I know that when they do a movie, it's going to be a good movie and I'll enjoy it. It may not be the best movie in the world, but I trust them.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So as a musician, that's kind of what you want to do. Like, I'm not all of a sudden going to turn around and make a hip-hop record or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've got to be really, especially the sort of fan base I have, that have probably been there for quite a while, and you do get new people. And, it's bizarre now that I'm sort of in my late 50s, you kind of get generational fans, at my record launch, I ran into a couple of young guys who were probably my son's age, early 20s, and they absolutely adored the stuff, and they'd gotten to it through, it was kind of a sad story, but it was through their parents.
Yeah.
And you kind of, so you owe them that same kind of responsibility, just to kind of make good records and make sure your shows are up to scratch. And so, I'm comfortable within that, Yeah. I think that's not a bad place to be, after 40 years in the music industry. It becomes like a cottage industry, but that's not a bad thing,
Yeah. Talking about that, getting older and the big anniversaries around this album, how does that make you feel? Because I know when I was reading some of those milestones, I started to feel a little bit older because I can remember playing Time Bomb on the radio for the very first time when I was working in my first radio gig. So, how do those milestones make you feel?
Happy anniversary. They're good, Like times are, it's a weird thing when you're a musician, because you're still playing those songs, like you still play Time Bomb, and you're reminded of things because of social media and digital content, things don't age, right? Because, things pop up, and Time Bomb clip will pop up, and, people are reminding you always. So you don't really stop and think, my God, that was 20 years ago when those anniversaries come around. And it is a shock, that you think that Time Bomb was like 30 years ago or whatever, So but it's not like, it's weird because, if you're looking at photographs, they have a different kind of, you look at photographs, oh my God, I was so young. But when you listen to a song, it doesn't sound unlike you now. So it's not, the Reptile stuff, to me, when I listen to it, has aged, it's dated, I don't. But my solo stuff has been really constant, I really, whilst if you think about it, you go, my God, 30 years. And if you look at the clips, you can see that, I was a lot younger and stuff. But as far as you're kind of always delving into that back catalogue, so it's kind of, when you actually play the songs, they don't. They still feel like you, if you know what I mean. It's kind of a weird thing, really. You know, it's not like they're still. And as I say, I mean, I've played a lot, so I've played Time Bomb and songs like that, 5 million times, So, but it's interesting the way songs evolve. The way you play them changes. It's not so much that you do them how you recorded them. They just it's funny. That's the funny part. You change, but the song remains the same, I guess, Yeah. Commas, but yeah.
Now,
it's kind of cool, really.
Yeah, it is, definitely. Now, you worked with your good friend Shane O'Mara on this album as well. Tell us a little bit about working with Shane on this album and what he brought to the album as well.
Yeah, Shane's this will be the 4th album I've done with Shane, plus we've done a bunch of other stuff. It's just important to have someone like him, like you. Producers I've used, I've had a lot of producers over the years, from the big high-flying days of the Reptiles through to, Shane just lives across the road, pretty much, across the main road, and, we're friends outside of music. And he's just a very guiding influence, And I need someone like that because I need somebody to know when to stop. Like he'll say, yeah, that's good. Otherwise, as I said, I can tear myself up with what I should do and what I shouldn't do with recording. And if I'm honest, I'm not really comfortable in a recording studio. I never have been. It's kind of, there's too many choices,
Yep.
I was always happiest when I got to make, records on 16 tracks, so I only had 16 tracks, anything more than that starts to do my head in with the possibilities, But Shane's just, he's got his studio and he's got it down, it's a great sounding little studio and you're working with friends. I mean, Leroy, who played drums on this record, is a friend of ours and he's in another band with Shane. He's a local, so there was, it was just a family collective, really.
Definitely.
And that's important for me. I don't like being out of my comfort zone too much,
Yeah.
But it was because of all the COVID stuff, we couldn't really rehearse, so it was done very, very off the cuff, everything was arranged on the spot and, which is kind of cool. It kind of mucks you up with keys and things is the only problem. If you don't rehearse stuff, you kind of just, when you're in a studio and then you go to play things live, you go, I probably should have put this in a different key because of just, But it also makes you do things that you wouldn't normally do, like you singing different, you do different things with your voice and stuff. So you basically have no rehearsal. You're recording things into an iPhone and texting them to your drummer going, here's this idea, and then you go in and record from that. So it's very, very, there's no safety net with it,
Yep.
But then again, the safety net is you kind of with your mates who, Shane's not going to turn around and say, right, well, the clock's running kind of thing, so it's got this real nice, you can be a little bit experimental, I wouldn't do it again though. Like I think next time I'll be a bit more organised because it can be, which is where Shane's great, he'll go, right, now look, you don't need to be doing that, and that, just keep it simple. So, but I had a pretty strong idea of what I wanted to do. So, I like it. It's a mix of stuff on the record. It's not, every song's really different. So, I kind of like that. It makes it more of a picture, like it's 10 songs that are sort of, that take you on a little bit of, they bounce between styles a little bit, but lyrically they're all pretty, they're tied into one another. It does seem a little themed lyrically, which is kind of fun, Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. This is a deeply personal album, and I don't mean that lightly because you've always been an artist who writes from the heart and writes about things that people can relate to, but tracks like Unraveling World, they are so deeply personal. What was that experience like from you delving right into your soul and writing from such a personal place, especially with songs like Unraveling World?
Yeah, it was kind of time to write songs like that. I mean, songs are funny, some of the things that are sort of closest to you are hardest to write about, but things like that, like writing songs about, significant events in your life. And, when it's like anything, you bury a lot of stuff just by way of survival, right? Most people, especially when you're that age, when you're in your teens, 20s, and you have you lose a parent or something like that has a big effect on your life and which direction your life goes in, you tend to, not creatively, you just bury it on a personal level, just as a protection thing, right? As a way of moving forward. So sometimes it's hard to unbury things, if you know what I mean. You've spent so long kind of not thinking about it but it was just the time. It wasn't any great cathartic experience. It was just, I was just thinking about it, and I'd done a little segment for ABC Melbourne down here where they get you to write a postcard to somebody about your suburb, which was St Kilda, and I just wrote it. So I kind of wrote it to my mother, this postcard, and it was kind of like, oh yeah, and so the song sort of rolled on from that a little bit, and there's some other subject matter on the album that's pretty personal, but it wasn't like any kind of real big deal. It just felt like it was time. But once I'd written that song about Mum, I just sort of thought, oh, well, I might have a crack at the old man as well, Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then there was a few other. I was kind of reflective, and there was a few other people that I felt like giving a little bit of a serve to, and myself included. So it kind of, you know what I mean? It was sort of a little bit. It's albums are always, songs are always like that. There's always some kind of. There's always a motive, where it might be a gentle motive, and it might be that you're a bit angry, and I don't know. But I guess what I'm saying is, songs are always personal. I guess just the scale of how personal does vary, and whether they're kind of monumental events like like a breakup of a family, or delving into your kind of teens, which is a kind of bit of a minefield, but they're the events that shape you, and as you get older you realise that they're important to who you are today, for good or bad. So just from the natural creative process, you will come to deal with them at some point. I always hear songwriters talking about events like that and making big deals out of them, but they're just, you'll get to them eventually. It's more about where you're at. If you want to bury something forever, it'll stay buried. You won't write a song about it, but you just, with time, things rise to the surface, and you're reflective about them. So you kind of they surface in your whether it be your songwriting or whatever it is you're doing. I guess I mean, it's human nature, isn't it?
Yeah. Talking of human nature, have you had a lot of fans come up to you over the years and say that certain tracks of yours have forced them to deal with things in their life, or have helped them in their lives?
I have, actually, and it's kind of quite amazing, really, because you just don't think of your songs that way when you write them, because they're quite selfish, and then you realise later, well, I always do, looking at them, you think, they are, you can interpret them in any way you like. They're a lot more generous than you think, lyrically. When people do approach you, like I wrote a song about my son that was on my last solo album 10 years ago, and it was kind of about the breakup of me and his mother, and it was written from his point of view at a 6-year-old, and it's a sad song, but so many people have, especially men,
Yep.
who've been through, you know, that brutal, well, men and women, but like men tend generally, you know, tend to clam up a little bit, but they've really reacted emotionally to that song, you know. And, you know, there's been a few other songs that I've written that people have really said to me, you know, this song helped me or that song, and it's so humbling, you know, because I just never really thought about it, and I guess in a lot of ways that's why I've changed my way of thinking about, you know, I realise I've got a responsibility, you know, with, even as I said, to that small group of people, and it's not a lot, you know, look, you know, I know where I'm at musically, you know, I don't, but the people that I have, you know, I do owe them a debt, and that's by being as honest as I can with things, because that's what people say when they say, oh, that song's so honest. It really, you know, it feels like it's about me, you know. So it just means you try not to kind of get too, you know, you got to be careful you don't disappear up your own backside lyrically, you know.
Yep.
Don't want to get I don't want them. I like songs that are sort of, you know, got that Paul Westerbergy kind of flow to them, you know. But you don't want to be to be too obscure where people can't get any benefit out of them if that's what they want. You know what I mean? So there's a balance, I guess. And you just realise. I mean, it's like anything. As you get older, you just realise that there's a power in songwriting that's beneficial, you know, to yourself and to other people, and you shouldn't ignore that, even if it's only on such a small level as the one I'm dealing with, you know what I mean?
Definitely.
I guess, you know.
Yeah.
Sorry, pretty deep for a Sunday morning I'm getting, but
no,
it's what I truly believe, Dave. You know, I think that, yeah, I'm just more aware of that it is kind of a gift, you know. Not everybody can do it, and I'm not saying that I'm gifted, and I'm not saying that, you know, I'm better than anybody else at it, but it is my craft, and I have honed it over the years, and, you know, with that comes, you know, a certain amount of responsibility if you've got people listening to them. You know, you don't want to make your song so personal that people can't take anything out of them except your story, I guess, is my point.
Definitely. Well, mate, we will say
it. Like Alanis Morissette.
Well, we will say it for you. You are one of the most gifted musicians in this country, and it's always a pleasure when we're able to play your music on our show. So we're going to do that right now. We're going to play a track off the new album. So I guess to finish off the interview, mate, what would you like to say to people out there before they sit down this weekend and take a listen to Exoskeleton from start to finish?
Oh, just go with it. I mean, there's a thing now with Spotify and all that, you know, everything's all about snippets. Sometimes you need to listen to a whole record to get one song, you know, because you need to work out where it works, because especially now making vinyl, and, you know, it's come back to making albums instead of songs. So you need to treat, you know, if you got time, you need to treat the record as a whole rather than skip between tracks, you know, because that's how I made it. So, yeah, go back to listening to whole albums. You know, if you listen to one side and then come back and listen to another side, you know, it is broken up into two sides, even on a compact disc. So, you know, that'd be my advice.